All right. Okay, so let me ask you something. Are you ready to stop finally wishing you could invest in real estate? Are you ready to stop watching everyone else build assets and get passive cash flow? Well, good. You're in the right place. Here's the good news. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to get started using the BRRR strategy. I'm going to break the process down into 4 easy to understand steps so that you can get clarity and start working on getting your first multifamily deal or expanding your business. Welcome to the Warriors of Wealth webinar on how to create cash flow and build wealth using the BRRRR strategy. We're Jen and Stacy Conkey, and we're incredibly excited to have you on this webinar today. We're going to be diving into exactly how to use the BRRRR strategy to build consistent cash flow and increase your net worth, all from the comfort of home, working fewer than 10 hours a week. We're going to be diving into exactly how to launch your real estate business in just a second. But before we get too deep into the content, I want to tell you exactly who this class is for so that you know whether you're in the right place. So this webinar is for you if you've been wanting to invest in real estate, but you're not really sure how it all works. Or if maybe you have some investments in your hometown, but you want to expand to other markets and can't quite figure out how to make that transition. Or you've been researching, watching videos, reading articles, just trying to piece it all together, but you can't seem to figure out how it all fits. Well, you're in the right place. If you want to create consistent monthly cash flow and increase your net worth quickly, this webinar is for you. Or maybe you've been wanting to make an offer, but you just find yourself stuck in analysis paralysis. Or maybe you've taken other real estate courses, but you just still feel lost. If any of this sounds like you, you're in the perfect place because we're going to be diving into the details of the BRRRR strategy in this webinar. I also want to talk to you about who this is not for. And if you match any of these, this probably isn't the best webinar for you. You don't really need to spend the next 45 minutes on this webinar. You could just head out if any of these are fitting you. If you don't already know that you're interested in doing real estate investing, this probably isn't the webinar for you. I'm not going to be trying to convince you that this is the best way to build wealth. Everyone here pretty much already knows that to be true. So if you're not sure real estate investing is for you, I'd probably just head out. This is also not for people who have more excuses than desire to succeed. Ben and I are about taking action and empowering you to get results. If every opportunity is met with an excuse, it's just not going to be your ideal way to spend the next 45 minutes. And it's definitely not for people who are just fine with the status quo and don't want anything more in life. We want to help you build knowledge, build wealth. And if you don't like being pushed or empowered to do so, frankly, we're not the ones for you. And this is not for people who aren't willing to put in the work to build their long-term wealth. Just imagine what your life would look like if you had a consistent source of real estate leads flowing directly into your inbox every day, knowing exactly how to analyze them, making offers, and actually closing deals. And all of this is working from your laptop in less than 10 hours a week. We're going to be breaking down exactly how this works in just a few minutes. In the next 45 minutes, I'm going to show you how you can create a bursting pipeline of potential real estate deals in solid cash flow markets using the power of our simple 4-step system. I'll show you our proven strategy to confidently evaluate deals, make offers, and conduct due diligence. And I'll teach you the exact techniques Ben and I use to close deals in any market without ever leaving our home. We're going to show you how you can create your own cash flow portfolio even if you have no real estate experience. You don't need to be a realtor or a lawyer or a CPA to know how to create a portfolio of cash flow real estate that provides you consistent monthly income and takes care of your future retirement. We're going to show you all of that in this webinar. We're also going to show you how to choose the best strategy and market based on your goals and your resources. Convert all those random pieces of information into an easy to follow system that will allow you to do deals over and over and over. We're going to show you how to leverage your time and get deals flying into your inbox without driving for hours looking for fixer-uppers. And we're going to show you how to beat your competition by making no-risk offers that allow you to lock up a great deal, have time to really dig into the details, and you know what? If you don't like what you find, you renegotiate or you simply back out, no money out of pocket. And this is all while working from your laptop. I mean, in your bunny slippers if you want, from literally anywhere in the world. Now, what makes this webinar different? Well, frankly, there's just nothing for sale here. It's just we're going to give you proven content and strategies that are going to really revolutionize your entire real estate future. Before we dive into everything, I want to show you what's possible when you actually implement the 4-step system that we're going to be talking about today. These are some screenshots from our Mastermind chat string, showing people that are just like you. And these are all literally from the last couple of weeks. People just like you who are using our system to launch their business. So in this one, Amalia, who was like really new in the program, had just submitted her first offer. You'll have to excuse some of the language. We get crazy, but it was just super exciting. Everyone was so excited for her. Then you had Steve submitting an offer on a 24 unit in Miami. And then in one day, Joni got an offer accepted on a 6 unit in New Orleans. Brad and Marlene got an offer accepted on a 21 unit in North Carolina. And then Steve was in active negotiations on another 18 unit value add project. What else? Oh yeah, Lupe. Lupe actually is closing on a duplex this Friday, and then she had another one under contract. Like just so much great stuff's going on. Steve, who is like our poster child for buying over and over and over and repeat and rinse, he had a duplex deal accepted, and then he did a price reduction request and got that accepted. So he was just updating the group. Hey, my loan is ready to close. I'm just waiting for the appraisal, and the rehab is getting close. So it's like so much good stuff's going on. And then Natasha, who been some deals and took a little bit of a break, saw all this stuff going on, and she's like, okay, hold on, I just can't take this anymore. I need to get in on this. She made some offers, ended up getting an accepted deal on a 6 unit. And then, of course, Steve, once again, I'm under contract with another duplex in Indianapolis. Like, these are just the people in our mastermind, or they're just taking what we teach and putting it into practice. And we recently asked some of our mastermind students, hey, tell me a little bit about what's your take on the mastermind? So Courtney said, I've never come across a program that's so comprehensive. They make it easy, relatable, and break every step down for you. Dina said, I've been to seminars and left with just a binder and a phone support from a third party. Jen and Stacy have created a program that feels like a family, full of support. Cassie said, I was able to apply what I learned and close my first deal within a couple of months. And Bobby, we were able to purchase 6 out-of-state duplexes. We've overseen full renovations by simply following the information provided us through the mastermind. Does any of this sound like you? Like, are you tired of having real estate be on your someday I'll do that list, or confused by all the information that's coming your way, not sure what to do first, second, and third? Are you afraid of making a mistake or just stuck in analysis paralysis? Well, we know what it's like, and we have been where you are, and we want to show you what works for us and our students. I have some exciting news. This is exactly what we're going to show you how to do in this training. We're going to show you how to start investing in real estate, building cash flow and equity. So we're going to talk just a little bit about it so you know who's teaching you, and then we're just going to dive headlong into some serious content. Make sure if you don't have a pen and paper, go get one, because I'm about to drop some serious knowledge on you guys. So we are Jen and Stacey Conkey. We are the founders of Warriors of Wealth. We've been investing in real estate since 2003. We've worked in 14 different markets across the US. All of our investing has been done remotely, which means we live in San Diego. Our investing has all been done elsewhere without us being there. Jen was a leader in corporate America for 22 years, and she invested as a side business throughout her career and was able to retire and focus solely on real estate. Stacey, who's me, I was a CFO who I left corporate America to invest in real estate, and I've been coaching real estate investors for more than 10 years. Jen and I combined our skills to create Warriors of Wealth real estate investing coaching and mastermind to help the next generation of investors be able to take the steps necessary so that they can have what we've created. So we're really passionate about real estate investing, and we've had the opportunity to speak on multiple stages to thousands of investors across the US, sharing our knowledge and teaching our proven process. And though we've created a multi-million-dollar portfolio, we were once in your shoes. We started by acquiring small multifamily properties that were the ugly kid on the block. And we truly developed a knack for adding value and rehabbing, which allows us to create consistent monthly cash flow and build equity. We just love taking the ugly, nasty property and making it gorgeous. I mean, did you see that bathroom? Oh, I mean, it's just amazing. Like, we love adding value and rehabbing. Anyway, once we dialed in our process, we just kept repeating it. And it's funny because everyone calls it the BRRRR strategy. Well, Jen wants to call it the BURP strategy, which would be buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat into your portfolio, the BURP strategy. I just simply can't call it the BURP strategy, but that's what she's calling it. So that's what you guys are learning today, the BURP strategy. And look, we just kept doing it over and over and over. So some of you know us, but not all of you. And it might surprise you. Yeah, we have 4 kids. And look, we're not going to be like the gurus that are going to flash you a bunch of fake Lambos, mansions, and yachts and show you all about the stuff they supposedly have. Look, building a cash flow portfolio for us has given us freedom, time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom, so that we get to enjoy raising our kids, seeing the world, and creating lasting memories. You know, and whether it's catching a baseball game or seeing mopeds around an island or flying to New York on a whim or being chased by a T-Rex, visiting the temple, parasailing, or taking our parents on a cruise or petting some dolphins in the Bahamas. Look, there's 4 steps that we follow that enable us to run our real estate business remotely. And that's what I'm going to teach you today. The first is select, investigate, close, and manage. The old way of doing real estate was watching random YouTube videos, driving around looking for fixers, getting stuck in analysis paralysis. The new way of investing, and what we're going to teach you, is remote investing. Doing everything from your laptop, whether you're on your beanbag, you're at a park, or at a beach, or sitting anywhere. From wherever you are, as long as you have your laptop, you can do what I'm about to teach you. So let's get into those 4 steps. Step 1 is select. So in the select step, we're going to be selecting your strategy, your team. You're selecting your strategy and your market, then your team, and then selecting your deal. So let's get started with strategy first. So the first thing I want to do is just establish the difference between straight cash flow as a strategy versus the BRRRR strategy. So with straight cash flow, it's pretty simple. You basically put your down payment and you close. You get immediate cash flow at closing, and it's perfect for if you have capital, but you really have a limited time. That's a great strategy for you. Now, that's not what we're focusing on today, but it is important to note that there are different strategies. We're focusing today, of course, on the BRRRR strategy. So with the BRRRR strategy, you're going to buy, renovate, rent, and refinance. So you're going to buy a fixer-upper, you're going to rehab it, you're going to rent it out, and then you're going to go get a conventional loan, or you could even go through hard money, but you're looking basically for a long-term 30-year fixed loan. So this strategy takes more time and more effort, but you also make more profit. It does take more time before the property cash flows, but it's great if you want to increase your net worth pretty quickly in addition to building capital and don't mind adding value through improving the property and doing rehab. So for example, if you're buying a duplex fixer-upper for, let's say, $50,000 and you're putting $50,000 of rehab into it, let's say that your newly renovated property is now worth $130,000. So you're into it for $100, but it's worth $130. So you've basically added $30,000 to your net worth. And when you refinance the property, your refinance is going to be based on the new higher value, which oftentimes is going to allow you to pull out some, possibly all, of your initial investment. And then you get to repeat the process again. Next, you're going to select your market. Now, there's 3 things that we evaluate when selecting a market. Does it meet the 1% rule, population growth, and job growth? Let's talk about the 1% rule. So let's just give you a visual. Let's just say that you're looking at buying a single family house for $150,000. In order to meet the rent 1% rule, that house would have to rent for $1,500. Even in a decent price market, that's not the easiest thing to do. However, if you go to multifamily, even just a duplex, let's say you have a rent coming in on the left side of your duplex of $750 and the right side of your duplex for $750. Now you have $1,500 coming in for that same $150,000 purchase price. You have met the 1% rule. You are in a good cash flow market. Next is population and population growth. You want to establish, You want to establish that the market is at a minimum staying steady as far as the population, but ideally increasing in population. And of course, with job growth, we want to see positive job growth trends as well. All right, next you're going to be selecting your local team. So our local team is going to consist of investor-friendly realtors, licensed insured general contractors, OSHI certified home inspectors, and experienced property managers. Next, we want to be selecting our deals. All right, so you're going to be getting your investor-friendly realtors to send you leads. We're looking for both MLS-listed properties and off-market properties. Building multiple relationships with local realtors in your chosen market creates massive deal flow because each realtor has their own area of focus and their own relationships with potential off-market deals for you. So the more realtors you have looking for you, the more likely you're going to have great deals come in both from the MLS and from off-market. All right, next step in the process is investigate. All right, so step 1 was select. Step 2 is investigate. All right, so the investigate step is going to include analyzing the deal and calculating the right offer, submitting your offer, doing due diligence if your offer was accepted, and renegotiating the deal if necessary after you're done due diligence. So let's dive into some of the details of these. So with analyzing the deal and calculating your offer, you're going to need some information. You're going to need to know what are the market rents, and rentometer.com is a great resource for that. You're going to need to have ballpark renovation figures that you're going to get from your contractor. You're going to need to know what your after renovation value is going to be once you're done renovating, and you're going to need to know your projected expenses, which takes some research. All right, so having tools like Rentometer, I'm just giving you a quick visual, is going to show you all of the different rents around your subject property. So in this particular example, the subject property on the screen right now is the one that's in orange. Okay, that's the subject property. And if you see that A, B, C of all these different balloons around there, the next page shows you what the market rent is or what the rent is for each of those properties so that you can see what's close to you, what's close in square footage, what's close as far as bedrooms and bathrooms, etc. This is going to help you feel more confident that the numbers you're running are accurate as far as predicting what your market rents are going to be. All right, let's move on to the next part, determining ARV. So determining ARV, which stands for after rehab value, is important for knowing what the property will be worth once you're done renovating it. That's going to help you project how much of your capital you'll be able to get back when you're done refinancing. Next is selecting or submitting your offer. When you submit your offer, you're going to send your offer terms to your realtor. So your offer terms are going to include your purchase price, your EMD, which stands for earnest money deposit, your inspection period, and your inspection period is typically somewhere between 10 and 15 days. If you're getting into apartments, it's more like 30 to 45 days. And then your closing period, which if you're in the 2 to 4 family arena, it's going to be somewhere between 30 and 45 days. Now, it's interesting because this submitting an offer section is an area that hangs up nearly all new investors. They may get through everything else, and then when it comes to actually submitting the offer, they just get paralyzed with fear. What if I made the wrong offer? What if it's a bad deal? What if the rehab is more than I projected? So here's the deal. Your inspection period is your out. If you have 10 or more days or whatever you asked for to find out what's real about the property, this is your period of time that your earnest money deposit will be held by the title company. If you decide you don't like the deal, you use your inspection clause to back out of the deal. So that way you don't have to be stuck with all that fear. You have plenty of time to evaluate and make sure that the deal works for you. All right, next, let's just say that you make your offer and it does get accepted. Now here's the reality. You're going to write lots of offers that don't get accepted. This is a numbers game, and eventually you're going to make an offer that does get accepted. And when you do, well, you're probably going to have some nausea, frankly, but that's just part of it. That's just part of the journey. You're going to be nervous and scared, but you know what? You're stepping into due diligence. So let's talk about what due diligence looks like. So in due diligence, you're going to be verifying your ARV, which remember that stands for after rehab value. You're going to verify your market rents. You're going to be verifying your rehab costs, researching your property expenses, such as insurance, property taxes, property management. You'll be getting a home inspection and renegotiating the deal if the numbers don't work. So your due diligence, this is the time where you're going to dive deeper into all of the assumptions that you used to calculate your offer. So why don't we do all of this work before we make the offer? And new investors will oftentimes, I want to get all the information so I can make sure that I don't make a mistake when I make my offer. Well, first of all, while you're worrying about making a mistake and not actually making your offer, someone else, possibly Jen and I, but someone else is actually making the offer knowing they have that due diligence period to be able to do the research. So this is the time where you're going to dive deeper into everything. So if you did all that research before you made the offer, you're just going to end up missing out on deals over and over. And either you've done a lot of work, you submit the offer only to find out the seller isn't willing to take the price that you're offering. So if you spend a whole bunch of time on that just to get a no, that's a lot of time wasted. We don't want that for you. Or let's say you're analyzing the deal to death. Someone else is making the offer knowing they're kind of the inspection period, and they're just going to get in before you. And it's just going to get frustrating. So when we get into due diligence, we do that after the offer is accepted, because now nobody can compete with you. You basically own the contract for the period of time that you have your due diligence. That's the way it works in real estate. So when we're doing due diligence, you're always going to do the free due diligence first. Okay, so we're going to go get our sales comps. We're going to get our rental comps. We're going to review the financials from the seller if appropriate. We're going to be researching our expenses. So getting our updated insurance quote, calling the tax assessor's office to find out if the taxes will change, calling property management companies to get a quote. Like, we're doing all of that research, getting renovation quote from your general contractor. If all of that pans out, that's all the stuff that you can do that doesn't have a cost associated with it. If all that pans out and the numbers look good, then we order our home inspection. All right. And if the home inspection is all good, cool. You're moving forward to the next step, which is the closing section. All right. But what if it's not all good? What if your renovation costs were more than what you thought? Are you going to panic and freak out? Absolutely not. What you're going to do is you're going to go back and you're going to renegotiate the deal. Just like I showed you that screenshot from Steve Caro that he said my price reduction was accepted. He's doing a price reduction request because I taught him, when you get into due diligence and you get your home inspection and you find out there's more wrong with the property than you thought, you go back and try to renegotiate it before you just back out. And he did that, and he was successful, as are most of our students when they're doing their deals. So it's time to renegotiate the deal. You're going to get a price reduction request, or, sorry, you're going to get a price reduction from the seller, or you can get a credit from the seller to pay for the repairs based on the inspection. If the seller agrees, you're moving forward. If the seller does not agree and the numbers don't work for you, you simply back out of the deal and you get your earnest money deposit back. All right, so that's how that part works. And that's really why you're able to make a no risk offer, get your foot in the door quickly. Most new investors don't realize that, which means they have almost no ability to truly compete because they think they have to have all the information before they get started, and it's just not true. All right, so let's move to the next step, which is the closing step. So the closing step really includes two sections, pre-closing and closing. So your pre-closing includes really a lot of coordinating your team, your realtor, lender, title company, insurance agent, contractor. You're there to make sure everything is moving along. So Jennifer and I call this the section of our deals where we start herding cats. That's really what it feels like. You're running around trying to catch this cat and that cat and make sure everyone's working together. It's really the time in between when the due diligence ends and you actually close and own the property. There's just a ton of juggling that goes on during the time when you're preparing to close. So you're coordinating your 5 different team members. So your realtor is there to help you during this time. Sometimes you're going to need to let them or have them let the GC back in the property, or let the appraiser in, or follow up a title. So your realtor is really there to help you during this time. You might need to call upon them to help you with that. The lender, this is a time where you're coordinating the appraisal, possibly an inspection. Some lenders require an inspection for the lender. It's normal for you to pay the appraisal during this time. So that's something to be aware of. You're going to be sending in your documents to the lender, your application, your driver's license, your LLC documents, your proof of down payment, your scope of work for your renovation. Be prepared for lots of what seems like very random requests, particularly in the final week. When you think everything's done, ready to close, you're probably going to get 10 more requests that week. So you just mentally prepare for this pre-closing period to be pretty chaotic that last week, then you'll be able to relax and just get through it. With the title company, they're going to be pulling records to make sure there's no liens on the property and that title can be transferred clean. So title companies offer title insurance, which means if you find out later that there's a lien on the property and they didn't catch it, they have to pay it. You should always get title insurance. And if you're getting a lender, your lender's going to require it anyway. Your title company is going to be asking for information such as your LLC documents, insurance, your lender contact, etc. your job is to coordinate between all the parties and make sure everyone has what they need, and basically that it's all coming together. With your insurance agent, you'll already have gotten insurance quotes during due diligence, but now you're making a decision about which insurance company to choose, which kind of coverage you're going to get. So your lender might have some specific requirements about the type of coverage, which boxes they want checked, etc. So plan on doing some coordinating there between your lender and the insurance company. So contractor, if you're rehabbing, this is the time where you're getting all of your general contractor documents that you're going to need: their GC license, their insurance, a finalized scope of work, the general contractor contract, draw schedule, etc. You're going to be calling your contractor's references, verifying that previous work that was done. You're going to schedule your start date with your general contractor for the day after closing so that you can get started right away. You're also going to contact your original home inspector and touch bases and ask them if they'll go back and do draw inspections with your contractors. One of the things that just, you're so much more powerful when you're doing a rehab if you have an independent third party go and inspect work that your contractor has done before you wire the funds to them. And of course, your property manager. So with property manager, if you're doing it for the BRRRR strategy, you're really just coordinating with your property manager to find out like what their fees are, making sure you have them lined up so that when the property is rented, they're immediately ready to go and get some tenants in there for you. All right, so now let's talk about the actual closing. So there's a lot of last minute requests that happen. The title company is going to ask you a lot of last minute requests, so just be prepared for that. The title company is either going to, now this is closing remotely, because like I said, Jennifer and I, everything we do is remote because I don't want to be held down to any one location. I want to be in the Bahamas or at home in San Diego or at my kids' Little League game. I want it to not matter where my physical body is in order for me to do my business. So everything we do is done remotely. So I want to just give you a little bit of an idea of what that looks like. So the title company is either going to email you the file of a whole bunch of documents that you print, and then you take to your bank or somewhere where you can get documents notarized, and you're going to get a couple of documents notarized, and then you would FedEx or overnight the package back. The other thing they might do is they might have a mobile notary come to you and have you sign in their presence. If that's the case, the notary actually leaves you with a copy of the package and overnights the package to the title company. And then you, of course, are going to wire in your closing funds. All right, so that's what the pre-closing and closing looks like. Step 4 in the process is manage. All right, so manage is, well, now you've closed, right? Congratulations. So the realtor is going to get the keys. You're going to be managing the rehab, which is a lot of coordinating with your contractor. You're going to use your home inspector to go inspect work before you send funds in order to keep you safe. And you're going to hire a property manager so they can get that unit filled as soon as you have it ready to go. You, managing your portfolio, are going to be reviewing the monthly reports to make sure that everything is going the way that it should be and that you have eyes on your property all the time. There's one thing that always kind of bothered me when I was a new investor about when gurus would talk about passive cash flow. They really made it sound like there was literally nothing you need to do. And here's what I'll tell you that Jennifer and I have discovered over time and we've implemented. When you take your eyes off of your portfolio, it can get out of hand really quickly, the expenses and things. So at a minimum, the work that you do is usually just in the acquisition of the property. Once the property is performing, there's very little to do. However, there's not nothing to do. You still want to be reviewing your reports every month, asking your property managers questions and holding them accountable so that they know you're watching. And that's something when we implemented that, we started seeing a lot more cash flow coming in because they knew we were watching. And here is what momentum in our program looks like. Kahisha says, being a part of the program has helped me move out of my comfort zone. Jen and Stacey hold me accountable, which I've needed for years. And we absolutely do. Marlene, I like the weekly calls we have together as a group, and we work together as a team to analyze situations, and I recommend anyone to join this program. Brad, the best part about this group is the camaraderie and the support from multiple coaches and my peer investors. My possibilities are endless now. Kara, thanks to Jen, Stacey, and their team, I closed on my first fourplex in less than a week and already have another I'm analyzing for a potential offer. Bobby acquired 6 duplexes in his first 12 months. He went from 0 to 12 units in just 4 months. Batel acquired her first out-of-state single-family home for a flip and acquired her first multifamily 9-unit building. Natasha did her first 6 duplexes within 90 days, and she's presently working on a 6-unit condo conversion. And Steve acquired a duplex and a single family home within his first 30 days, and he went from 0 to 21 units in just over 90 days. So you now have a choice to make. First choice, of course, is, you gotta figure this out all on your own. That's certainly an option. The second choice, which we're definitely a fan of, is for you to learn a proven and tested process from someone who's actually mastered real estate investing. The winner's path is joining the mastermind and getting started building your portfolio with us holding your hand. Over the next few days, we've set aside some time to talk with you and see if we can help. We'll talk for about 45 minutes and we'll map out an exact action plan for you to follow so that you can get started building your portfolio. If that's something you want to have a chat with us about, you're going to text the word freedom to the number on the screen, which is 619-373-8461. And when you text the word freedom, that's our business text line, we will automatically shoot you back an application for our mastermind program that will ask some questions just to get an idea of what your goals are, where you're at, and we'll identify if we can help you. And if so, we'll schedule a call for you. So when we get on a call, together we're going to dive into your goals, your current resources, and identify the actions you need to take in order to get your portfolio going in less than 90 days. So why are we doing this? If you want us to personally work with you to launch your real estate portfolio, and if we think it's a good fit, we might invite you to become one of the new students that we take on. If that's the case, we'll walk you through what it would look like and take you through an overview of our program that's designed to get you into your first remote property in as little as 90 days. You're going to text the word freedom to 619-373-8461. All right, so I have a question from Leora. How do you verify ARV? That is a great question. So there are a few different ways that you can verify ARV. The way that Jennifer and I do it is the first thing that we do is we contact our local realtor in that market and we ask them to send us all of the sold comps of everything that has sold within the last 12 months within a 1-mile radius. Now, of course, I'm going to look at properties that have sold more recently and also properties that are closer than a mile. But when it comes to doing multifamily, there's not as many comps for you to use. If you're doing single family homes, there's tons of comparable sales. When you're getting to duplex, triplex, fourplex, or anything larger, you don't have as many properties to choose from. So sometimes you have to go further back or you have to go further out. Oh, and I just realized it doesn't have the phone number on the screen. So if someone needs it again, I'm actually not trying to show it, but that's okay. If anyone needs the number to text in again, just shoot me a note and I'll put it in the chat. Oh, actually, did you put it in the chat? If you can, cool, thanks. All right, so Leora, that's what we're gonna do. So what we do is we're looking for properties, sorry, I got a little distracted. We're looking for properties that are similar to ours. So if you're going to be renovating a duplex that is 2-bedroom, 1-bath on each side, I'm looking for other properties that have sold within the last 12 months, within a mile, that are also 2-bedroom, 1-bath, that are similar in square footage and similar in year built. That's going to give me the best idea, and also is renovated. That's going to be giving me the best idea based on what that sold for, what it's going to appraise for when I go to refinance. All right, that's my favorite way of doing it. Another thing that I will do sometimes is I will use Redfin to go in and see what else has sold. I always prefer to go the route of using my realtor because that allows me to leverage my time. But if I'm not getting a lot from my realtor, if I don't have a local realtor contact, which would be unusual, then I'll go and I'll use Redfin to do that. Okay, how much of our own money are we using for these deals? That's a good question. So that is going to depend on what you're trying to do. If you have your own resources, because some people coming into this, they do have their own resources, and other people, they don't have their own resources. When we started investing back in 2003, we did not have our own capital. So we did a couple of different things. We partnered with people so that we could get going. We also did some private money loans, or took some private money loans from people so that we could get the ball rolling. Now, when you're taking a private money loan, and we just did a training about this on Monday, you're getting a private money loan from an individual, That's not ideal if you're going to buy it and just put down a down payment and hold it. That's more of a partnership. But in the BRRRR strategy, that is one that lends itself nicely to someone making a, a 6-month loan to you so that you have the capital to put the down payment, holding costs, closing costs, financing costs, and be able to fund the deal that way. And then you pay them back when you refinance. If you have your own money, then you can use your own money. It doesn't mean you have to, but if you don't have it, you're simply going to partner or do private money from someone else. Julian, I'm actually confused. Is this for wholesaling or specifically purchasing and flipping? Well, Julian, it's not for wholesaling. This is a class for the BRRRR strategy, meaning buy, renovate, rent, and refinance. So it's not related to wholesaling at all. And it's also not flipping, because flipping would be selling the property. So it's somewhere, it's not actually in between, but it's closer to flipping than it is to wholesaling because you are buying it. But instead of selling the property when you're done, you're going to keep it as a rental property and you're going to refinance it. The reason, let me give you guys a little bit of background. The reason you are going to refinance is, I'll give you a specific example. So Steve in our mastermind has actually acquired 21 units. Actually, he closes on his 21st unit this week. He acquired his first 19 units in the first 90 days. But anyway, he's closing on his 21st unit and has another duplex under contract. That'll be 23 units. Well, his very first purchase that he made ended up being something where he had to be able to close very quickly because it was a situation where someone else fell out of contract and the only way Steve could get it is if he was willing to close within a week. So he actually used cash, which I think was maybe from a line of credit. There was some way he had access to cash. So he actually bought the property with cash. He then went, after he closed on it, he went and renovated the property, or had it renovated. I never teach any of my students to go put your hands on the property. We're not swinging hammers. We're swinging our phones and our computers and coordinating things. So he had the renovation done, and now he's in the process of refinancing. Well, now the property is worth a lot more than it was when he bought it, because when he bought it, it was a fixer-upper. Well, now it's a totally renovated property that's performing cash flow property. So when he goes to get a loan on it, the bank is going to look at the current value, the new value of the renovated property, and they're going to give him, let's say, 70% of that amount, and it's called a cash out refinance. So he'll get his money back. Now he'll have a loan on the property, and now he can take that money that he used to buy it, and he could do the next deal. He could refinance it out and do the next deal. So that's one reason someone might refinance if they close on it with cash or with a HELOC or with a line of credit. Another reason you would refinance is if you don't have access to cash or line of credit and you're going to fund the deal using a hard money lender. Hard money lenders will typically lend you, let's say, 80% of the purchase price and all of the rehab funds, right? So that's great. They're funding like a huge amount of the deal, but the offside of it is a very high interest rate. But you couldn't get a loan like that from a regular bank. So that's really a good loan, but it's going to be between 10 and 12%. That's not something you want to hold on to on a long-term basis. So when you're done renovating the property and you have tenants in there, now is the time to go to a conventional lender and refinance into a regular interest rate, long-term 30-year fixed mortgage. All right. Chandrika Davis, how do you qualify for financing? Well, it depends on what kind of financing you're talking about. If you're talking about qualifying with a hard money lender for the BRRRR, like to do the purchase and the renovation, there's really not much to it. You contact the hard money lender. They're going to ask you for probably a personal financial statement if you have experience. And oftentimes, the fact that you don't have experience if you're new doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to be able to get a loan. They just might lend more to you if you do have experience. So really what they're looking at is not you as much as they're looking at the property. So they're going to be asking for, so qualifying for financing in that arena is they're going to be looking at what is the current purchase price, how much renovation does it need, what's the after rehab value, and then they will be looking at you more secondary. What is your credit score? And a lot of them don't have high credit score requirements. And if they do, they're typically a lender that actually lends a very high amount. So credit score isn't usually something that will hold you back from hard money. So financing is more, or qualifying is more about the property itself. Now, when you're talking about refinancing the property, how do you qualify? It's just like going for a home loan. You go to your local bank or you get on with a mortgage broker, and they're going to be looking at, most likely, if you're like a W-2 employee, they're going to be looking at your tax return. They're going to want to see leases on the property. They're going to want to see how much you bought it for, how much you renovated it for. They're going to want to see, you know, proof of why you think the after rehab value is what it is. And they're going to take all that into account. And then they're going to present to you, here's what we could do as far as a loan. We can, you know, give you 70% of the after rehab value at X% interest for this much years amortization. So qualifying for financing is the same as it would be for pretty much anything else. You fill out an application, they ask you for documentation, you provide it, and then they'll tell you what they can do. Vincent, what are the markets that you target? Are you specializing in larger multifamily 5+? No, so the markets that we target, well, Vincent, I never tell anyone, oh, you should go look at this specific market, because the reality is there's a lot of really good solid cash flow markets. So we never tell our students, oh, you should go invest in X market. That'd be like me, like we go fishing, you've never fished before, and all I do is go catch the fish and hand it to you. Like, I haven't really taught you how to eat for life. So instead, what we do is we teach our students how to analyze a market, the specific detailed approach to this market is going to make sense. And remember, it's the main 3 criteria are the ones I talked about earlier. You want to make sure it meets the 1% rule. You want to make sure that you have a positive population growth, and also that there's positive job growth in the area. And we do not specialize in large multifamily 5+. We actually do both. We actually have 2 different programs. One focuses on 2 to 4 family and helping new investors get started there and building a portfolio. And then we have an apartment program. That program does specialize in 5+ units. Jennifer and I have done both, and we focus on all of it. We just help our students go into whichever program makes the most sense for them based on what their goals are. Leora, I lost my job due to COVID right after I closed on a duplex that needs a ton of work. I'm almost ready to rent the property, but my question is, what would you do next? I want a new property to BRRRR, but you're lost. Well, Leora, in a case like that, if you don't have a job, well, first of all, whether you have a job or not is not typically relevant to any hard money lender. They're more looking at what capital you have. So if you have capital, that's probably fine. If you don't have capital, but you want to do another property, you're going to partner up with someone to do that, or take a private loan. All right. But as far as refinancing, if you don't have a job and you're trying to go through a conventional lender, that's going to be a sticking point. So in that case, you might refinance through a hard money lender. And as much as that sounds crazy, I'll tell you, there's a lot of hard money lenders out there that have really, really reasonable long-term rental programs. That didn't used to be the case, but that is definitely the case now. So I wouldn't worry about too much you not having a job. It's more about what capital you have. So if you have a good amount of capital, but not a job, you're probably going to refinance with a hard money lender. And again, the interest rates aren't bad. Just shop around so that you know what your options are. And if you don't have the capital, partner up with someone that does until you get back to a point where you could do it on your own. But definitely don't stop. You should never let anything stop you. Tamara, do you need a corporation for this strategy or just LLCs? You do not need a corporation, and you don't even technically need LLCs. Although usually the reason for a number of reasons, it's preferable to use an LLC for the purpose of asset protection and separating it from your personal assets. But the other reason you're going to probably need to have an LLC is because unless you're financing it with cash, most hard money lenders are going to require that you have an LLC in place because they only lend to you if you have an LLC. And it probably has to do with their interest rates that they charge. That's outside of what normal consumers can pay. And so they have to do like business to business lending. So you don't technically have to have an LLC. Some lenders would lend to you personally, but as a professional in the business, it's ideal if you have an LLC. But do you need a corporation? That's not necessary. If you are meeting with your attorney, and we do have an attorney group that we use, they might sometimes suggest using a corporation depending on what your current assets already are and what you're going to be acquiring. Because some people have multiple other businesses, homes, precious jewels or art or whatever. There might be different reasons that you would set up a corporation, but that's something that you should meet with an attorney about to identify whether that's necessary for you. Leora, how do you find your private money lenders? That's a great question. So when I got started in real estate, I'm going to answer this in 2 phases. When I got started and what I would be doing now if I was just getting started. When I was just getting started in real estate, I don't think Facebook existed, or maybe it existed, but it was probably still, in Mark Zuckerberg's dorm room, right? So that wasn't really around then. So the way that we would get private money was by going and networking at real estate investment clubs. And here's what I found. When I would go to a real estate investment club, everybody who was there paid to get in. Maybe it was $20 or $30, not a huge amount, but still an amount, right? So they're obviously interested in real estate investing if they're there. Well, I had made an investment in my education. So I had a lot of knowledge. Of course, when I put it into play, I ended up realizing I was super confused and didn't know what I was doing. But I knew a lot more than the people at the investment club knew because they hadn't made any investment in their knowledge or education, right? So they were just kind of floundering, really wanting to invest, but having no idea how to do it. So here was me, super enthusiastic, very excited, and saying, well, I'm investing in these markets. And they're like, oh my gosh, that's so exciting. I wish I could do that. And what I would do, Leora, is I would say, well, I'd be happy to show you what I'm doing. If you want to partner up or if you want to be a private lender for me, I'll pay you a great interest rate and I'll just kind of show you what I'm doing along the way. And I had a lot of people take me up on that over the years. They would do the partnership or the loan. The funny thing is, and I always meant I would truly show them what I was doing because I'm a natural teacher. I love teaching people whatever I know. I want them to know it too. And everybody was like, oh yeah, I definitely want to learn. So they would end up making the loan or partnering up, but then they would never take me up on the actual learning how to do it, which to me was a lot more valuable for their future. But a lot of people, they want the quick money and they don't necessarily want to put in the time or effort like you guys are doing, being here, spending your day on this webinar. You're obviously hungry for knowledge and you're doing what it takes to build that knowledge. Well, a lot of people, they're just simply unwilling to do that. Those are your perfect private money lenders and your perfect partners because they want real estate. They're already sold on the idea. I don't ever want you trying to convince someone, oh my gosh, you should invest in real estate. It's the best. Here's all the benefits. Because you're typically met, especially if you're new, with a lot of pushback and resistance. Oh, what about this? What about that? You don't need that negativity in your life when you're just getting started. You need people to be positive and excited. So talk to the people who are positive and excited. Those are the people who are going to be at real estate investment clubs. That being said, we're in the COVID period of time right now, so real estate investment clubs aren't meeting, but there are ones being done virtually. But nowadays, we do have Facebook. And many of you guys who are on this webinar, maybe not everybody, but a lot of you are in our Facebook group. And if not, you should come join our Facebook group. It's called Passive Income. We used to be called Passive Income Real Estate Investing. It's called Passive Income Multifamily Investing. Anyway, it's a free Facebook group. So if you think about it, within our Facebook group, which we have about 4,000 people and we're growing every single week, there's a whole bunch of people, 4,000 people who are interested in real estate. If they weren't, they wouldn't be in that group. Well, we're not the only real estate group out there on Facebook. There's lots of them. So nowadays, Leora, the way that we find private lenders and partners, if we need to on a deal, is just by networking within that environment. And for us also, we invest in a lot of masterminds because we like to be around other people who are doing what we're doing and at the next level, because that forces us to rise to the next level. So a lot of what we do now is it's virtual networking, whether through Facebook, through Zoom, through LinkedIn, through meetup groups that we do online. That's how we find our private money lenders and or partners. All right. You have a lot of good questions, Leora. Okay, next one is, do you have to hang on to the property for 6 months before you refi? That actually depends on the lender. So some lenders, and this is something called seasoning. So some lenders have seasoning requirements and some lenders do not have seasoning requirements. So the seasoning requirements that a lender has is going to vary anywhere from, like if you went to Bank of America or Wells Fargo, they're probably going to say you had to hold the property for a year. Well, that doesn't really work out so well when you're trying to get cash flow going and get out of a hard money loan. So that's not going to be an ideal situation. So you want to call around to different lenders. Some lenders have a 6-month seasoning requirement. Some only have a 3-month seasoning requirement, right? Which means you only need to hold the property for 3 months. Well, if you think about it from a time standpoint, if you're doing any kind of level of renovation, you're probably rehabbing for at least 2 months anyway. And then you're spending the next 15 to 30 days getting a tenant in there and getting the property up and running. Well, 3 months, is done in a flash. So if they only have a 3-month requirement, well, cool, you're good to go. Some lenders have no seasoning requirement. And if they have 6 months, well, then you just know you got it up and running in 3 months. You're going to hold it for 3 more months before you refinance. If that's the case, I would start the rehab or the refinance process right around month 5, 5.5, so that by the time you close, you've hit your 6 month and you can get it refinanced. But you don't necessarily have to hang on to the property for 6 months, but different lenders have different requirements. So you want to call around and ask those questions. Paul, do you look at the monthly cash flow as a buying factor? For example, do you require positive cash flow of $300 per door before buying? Okay, so do we look at the monthly cash flow as a buying factor? 100%, abso-freaking-lutely. If we are going to buy, renovate, rent, and refinance, when we go to refinance, if we do not have a sufficient level of cash flow, well, one, what was the point? But Another reason is that the lender won't do it. Lenders have a requirement for the DSCR, which stands for debt service coverage ratio, of anywhere from 1.25 and up. And for those of you who have never heard this language before, let me back up and explain these pieces a little bit. When a lender makes you a loan on a property, they want to know that the cash flow coming in every month is sufficient to not only coverage the mortgage payment to them, but that you have above and beyond that, just in case something comes up that sets you back. The last thing they want is for you not to be able to pay the mortgage. It's not that they care about you and, oh, poor you, we want to make sure you're okay. They don't. They're just looking at their loan, but they want to make sure that you have enough money coming in every month to pay that mortgage in full. And if something goes on unexpectedly, that you have the ability to pay that. So monthly cash flow is absolutely a requirement for us, because that is part of what we use to supplement our life. And also, our lender requires it. And here's the way it works with lenders. So oftentimes they have a minimum debt service coverage ratio of, let's say, 1.25. That means, let's say, for example, that the mortgage payment was $1,000. What that means is the net operating income, or the money that comes in from the property in rents minus the expenses, that would need to be 1.25 of the $1,000 mortgage payment. So in this case, that'd be $1,250. And if you show them a cash flow of only $1,100 a month before paying the mortgage, they wouldn't make that loan. All right, so they want to see that it's at least 1.25. Now, we've worked with some lenders that they say the minimum was 1.25, but once you get into the deal, you start to realize that that's technically their minimum, but most lenders want to see a higher debt service coverage ratio because they feel more comfortable with that. It's less risk for them. So for example, Jennifer and I run our portfolio at 1.6 debt service coverage ratio at a minimum, which means on any given month or over the course of the year, not only can we pay the complete mortgage amount, we have 60% above and beyond that as cash flow to us, which also allows us to pay for unexpected expenses that might come up and still have cash flow. And what we found with the lenders is the higher your debt service coverage ratio is, the lower your interest rate tends to be. It's like they reward you for putting them in a less risky position. And the thing that's funny about that is the lower interest rate actually makes the cash flow even higher, which makes your debt service coverage ratio higher. So that's what we do. We like to run our portfolio at about a 1.6, but the lenders require it to be at least 1.25. So yes, cash flow is absolutely a buying factor. Paul, the refi part is the most important part. Usually, what do lenders lend at loan to value for cash out refi and rate and term? Paul, that is a very tricky question to answer because it depends on what day it is. So, and I don't want to evade your question, so I'm still going to, I'm going to answer it, but I'm going to qualify it with knowing it changes all the time. So typically, well, I don't typically, before COVID, it wouldn't be uncommon to be able to do a cash out refi at, well, it depends on the lender, 70 to 80% loan to value, which means you can pull out a lot. When our most recent portfolio refinance that we did, our lender was willing to go up to 75%. We didn't want to pull out that much cash. We didn't need it. We wanted to have the equity in the property. So we made the decision to only go at 70%, but they were willing to go up to 75. I'd heard lenders that were willing to go higher. When COVID hit, everything came to a complete screeching halt, and like there was no cash out refis. And then within a couple of months, things started coming back. The last I heard, probably realistically what you're looking at is somewhere between 65 and 70%. But given that the lending environment is changing like every single week right now, it's hard to really say. What you'll want to do, Paul, is make a few phone calls, make a lot of phone calls if you have to, and start getting a bead for where people are at. But just know a month from now, it's probably going to be different just because things are continuing to loosen up in our favor, thankfully. All right. So, and then as far as rate and term, it's the same kind of thing. So for everyone who's listening and you're not sure the difference between cash out and rate and term, a cash out refinance is when you've put in, let's say, let me see if I can come up with some easy numbers here. I'm going to say that the after rehab value is $100,000 to make it so my brain can calculate these numbers for you. Let's say after rehab value is $100,000. Let's say I bought the property for $30,000 and I put $25,000 into it. All right. Our numbers usually aren't that low, but let's say we're all in $55,000. And let's say when I go to refinance, my lender's willing to do 70% of the ARV or loan to value. So if my after rehab value is $100,000 and they're going to give me a 70% loan, that means they're going to give me a loan for $70,000. Okay. So if I'm only into the property for $55,000 and they give me a loan for $70,000, that's called a cash out refi, because I'm going to pay off the money that I used to purchase and renovate it, and I'm going to end up with cash in my pocket. That's a cash out refinance. Okay. A rate and term refinance would be, let's say I bought the property, did my renovation, and I have a loan in place for $55,000. A rate and term refinance would be, even though the property is worth $100,000, I'm only asking for a loan for $55,000. That's a rate and term refinance, and those are typically lower in interest rate because you have a lower loan to value. It's less risky for the bank, so they reward you. Everything is with risk and reward is inverse. They're going to reward you with a lower interest rate because it's a lower risk. But yeah, specifics, Paul, you just got to call around because it's just constantly changing. And Etika, are we holding on to the property forever? That's really up to you. That's part of the strategy that you're going to be identifying. So anytime we buy a property, we rarely are looking at it as, well, we're going to hold it forever. But when we buy it in such a way that if we are going to hold it forever, we can do that. More realistically, particularly when you're starting off with single family homes and duplexes and you're building a portfolio, you're going to build this portfolio. And then after a certain amount of time, and the thing is, especially with the BRRRR strategy, you have equity in every single property because you're buying it low, putting renovation into it in order to increase the value. So as soon as it's done, you've already increased the value. Now add time on top of that. Put it 10 years later, you're increasing the rents every single year, even if it's just a little bit. The property values are typically increasing over a 10-year period. So now at the end of the 10 years, you might look at your portfolio and go, gosh, I love the way it cash flows. I just want to keep holding on to it. Cool. Then do that. Or you might look at it after 5 years or 10 years and go, God, we got a lot of equity. Because sometimes you end up investing in an area that just pops. And like we've done that in a couple of the areas that we invest in. We invested in areas that were right on the fringes of areas that were going through gentrification, knowing, you know what, there's a possibility that we might see some increase in equity here. But if we don't, if the gentrification doesn't come through our area, the property still cash flows well, and it's still a good buy and hold. But if the gentrification does spread to our property, the value is going to pop up quite a bit. And that's happened to us a few times. So over the course of time, let's say it's 5 years down the line, you might evaluate your portfolio and realize, hot damn, I have, $300,000-$400,000 of equity sitting in these duplexes. Maybe I should do something else with it. And that's a very common strategy for people to use as they're building up to larger and larger units. So what we would do in that case, if we were ready to move on to something else, is we would sell whatever group of properties were going to give us the capital that we need, and we would roll it into a larger building. So you might take, I don't know, it depends, like 4 to 8 duplexes, let's say, if they get enough value over time, sell them as a package deal to someone else, and then you would do a 1031 exchange into like an apartment building. And the reason you would do a 1031 exchange, and I realize I could do a whole class just even on that, so let me not get too crazy with the details, but the reason you would do a 1031 exchange would be because normally if you sell those properties and you have all that gain, you have $300,000 to $400,000 of gain that you've created with them because of all your rehabbing and time, you're going to get killed on taxes, right? You're going to have this huge capital gains. So, maybe you do that, you cash out and go on a fabulous vacation, but most real estate investors don't do that. They usually keep building because they want that long-term passive income, and they want a secure retirement that doesn't rely on Social Security. So in that case, you don't want to cash out and pay all those taxes. The 1031 exchange allows them to take the profits from that deal and roll it into the next property tax deferred, which means you're not paying income taxes on those profits unless you sell that next building. But it's typical for real estate investors to just keep 1031 exchanging from one building, put 5 or 10 years into it, into the next, and they just keep getting bigger and bigger buildings, because over time they just might want to spend less time dealing with a portfolio. So it's easier to have, 1 or 2 large properties than it is to have, 50 smaller properties. So as far as holding onto the property forever, you can. It's not necessary. It just depends on what your strategy is. And Leora, how do you find your deals? MLS, auctions, foreclosures, realtor leads. So the way that Jennifer and I run our business, well, I will start off by telling you, I have literally done every imaginable type of real estate deal, because when I was brand new, like many of you guys are, the way that I got my education, it was so like shotgun approach. It was a bit of torture, because I literally learned every potential way of doing things. And of course I wanted to do all of them because they're all so exciting and interesting. But the reality was it spread me out in so many different directions, and they never taught enough details that I actually knew what I was doing. So I was constantly like tripping over my feet trying to figure out my deals. So there's a lot of different ways to find deals. What we have done in our business, and this is a function of, look, we've got 4 small kids. We run our real estate portfolio business. We have a coaching business. We have a business consulting business. The thing we don't have is time. What we've learned to do is leverage realtor relationships in multiple markets, so that our realtors in every market that we're active in, they know exactly what we're looking for. So they know when a new property comes on the market, or a property comes back on the market that it fell out of due diligence, or there's a price reduction, anything that meets our criteria, they know immediately, call us, send us the comps, we'll get an offer to you within an hour, because we're just quick about it, because we want to lock it up under contract. All right. So we leverage realtor relationships. The more realtors that we have in those different markets, the more opportunity we have for someone to notice when a property comes on the market or back on the market. And all of those realtors have all their own relationships with off-market deals. So yes, well, I'd say yes, you can do auctions technically. I do not recommend ever that any new investor, or really experienced investor, frankly, do auctions, because you do not have an inspection period, which means your entire safety mechanism ceases to exist. And so we do not teach our students that. In fact, we teach them, don't even think about touching an auction as long as you're a member of this mastermind. It's unacceptable, because the risk level is way too high. We are all about making the safest potential investments as possible. No matter what, there's going to be risk, but there's no reason to take unnecessary risk, and auctions fall into that for us. Foreclosures are oftentimes listed on the MLS. If you're talking about pre-foreclosure, yeah, that's absolutely a strategy you can do. The only reason I don't suggest people focus a lot of time and attention on doing pre-foreclosure is because of how much time it takes. It's something that you would do in your local markets. Like, we live in San Diego, we don't invest here. So that's not something I could do here in San Diego, because you have to go figure out who's behind in their payments. You're going to be mailing them letters, as well as 100 other investors also mailing them letters, or knocking on their doors along with other 50 investors knocking on their doors. So it's a strategy that takes an immense amount of money, immense amount of time, and there's so much competition. And because so many different gurus out there teach that strategy, it's so overdone that it makes it very difficult for anyone who's new to ever actually get started. So we don't teach it, just because we don't feel like, as a new investor, you're going to have a high success rate. So what we teach is the strategy that we have been using, our students have been using, to get deal after deal after deal, which is leveraging the relationships of realtors to get properties being sent to you. So I know that was kind of a long way of answering it, but that's where it comes from. It just comes from a place of, we want our students to actually be investing and have success. So we get them to focus on the absolute fastest way to get deals coming in. From RJ, so are you guys recommending this strategy for a new investor versus wholesaling? It really depends, RJ. Wholesaling is not something that is necessary just because you're new. Usually people will wholesale if they want to start earning some money in real estate, but they're not ready to do any buy and hold investing yet. So you absolutely do not have to wholesale. We have members of our mastermind who had never done a deal before. Well, Steve Carroll, for one, he never did a deal before. He joined a wholesale program, took it, and he was like, I have a really hard time, the idea of finding a good deal and then having someone else do it. Like, I want it. So, and it's a lot more work than it could sound, anyway. So if you're interested in starting to build up your future and build your retirement and build cash flow, you don't need to wholesale first. If you don't have capital and you would be wholesaling for the purpose of gaining capital to invest, you still don't need to wholesale. You can just partner up with people. It's okay to skip that step. But here's where wholesaling becomes really cool. And actually, we have a couple people in our apartment mastermind that might be wholesaling an apartment building. But here's why. They got a 21 unit and a 16 unit under contract, like within 2 days of each other. Well, that was unexpected. And so what we basically coach them through is, look, you still want to do the due diligence on both of them, because one of them might fall out, right? And one of them might fall out, and then you're just going to close on the other. But if it doesn't fall out, and you have two good deals, you pick the one that's easier for you to do, that you like, and then you can offer that deal to someone else. Because there might be someone else who's like, we're not willing to, or they don't have the time to go spend doing all of the work it took to build the realtor relationships and to get the property under contract, to do all the due diligence. You've done all that. That's a huge asset. That's a value to someone else. That's something that someone else would pay for to be able to get that deal. So that's where we do recommend wholesaling, is whenever our students get more than one property under contract. And we always recommend, like, just do one deal at a time when you're new, like learn the ropes. There's a vertical learning curve. There's so much to learn. So do one deal, but if you happen to get two good ones, cool. You have a whole mastermind group of other people who are going to want that deal, or even on the Facebook group. So we don't suggest wholesaling instead of doing buy and hold, but we do suggest wholesaling when you end up with more than one deal. But if you feel like you're not ready to do buy and hold, then wholesaling is perfectly fine. Nico, do you help manage the portfolios, or do we get our own management team? So Nico, it would be, obviously, if we could have a conversation, I could ask you a couple questions to get clarity on what you're asking. So I'm going to make a little bit of a guess. I think you're asking, if you're in the mastermind, do we help manage the portfolios, or do you get your own management team? So when someone is in our mastermind program, we are teaching you how to build the entire business. So part of that is, like Steve, Bobby, like some of the people in our mastermind that have now basically got portfolios. Part of our coaching is to coach them on how to manage the whole portfolio. Now, managing the portfolio means you also have teams. So we're teaching you how to actually manage your teams. So we become part of your team from a coaching perspective, to teach you how to lead them. Because eventually you don't need us anymore, because we've taught you how to fish instead of just giving you the fish. But that is something we hold your hand through the entire process, because our thought on it is, our journey was so difficult and so like fraught with challenges and feeling alone and just not knowing what we were doing, making so many mistakes, losing so much money on stupid things that we didn't really need to lose money on had we had some mentorship. Our mission and goal is for the next generation of investors who are stepping into their next level, that they don't have to go through that. That's what we're coaching them through. We can see red flags a mile away. Why? Just because of all the experience that we've had. A lot of it good, but some of it not good. Well, we can really see those coming a mile ahead of time, so we can save our students the pain of going through those learning experiences. Yes, Leora, can you talk a little bit about our financial team? What helps you stay organized, money and tax-wise? Oh yeah, so our financial team, well, for one, we are part of our financial team. Our property managers are part of our financial team. Our CPA is part of our financial team. So from a logistics standpoint, like every month, you'll get a report from your property manager. Well, let's say you're active in 3 different markets and you have a property manager in each market. You're going to get reports from your property managers for each property coming in every month, right? So that way you can kind of keep an eye on things. And so they're doing the bookkeeping. That's part of what you're paying property management for. They're recording the rents coming in. They're recording the expenses going out. There might be some expenses that are going out that they don't pay, like insurance and property taxes, although sometimes they will. But for the most part, they're going to handle all the operating income and expenses. So you just get a report that's in summary form. And then at the end of the year, they give you an annual one. So you're reviewing it every month to make sure everything looks okay. At the end of the year, they're giving you an annual one. You basically take that and you send it to your CPA along with anything else that you paid on the property that the property manager didn't pay. All right, and then your CPA basically does the tax return. So there's not really a whole lot to it. It can feel a little bit more overwhelming when you're thinking about it, because you're like, man, what are all these different pieces? But the reality is, you have a team, you're managing a team. We are not the do-it-yourself kind of investors, because if you're managing property yourself, if you're doing a lot of things yourself, what you're going to end up being is the burned out landlord that we end up getting a property from in 10 years at a great discount, because you're just so over it that you can't even stand looking at the property anymore. So what we teach is developing and creating a team of people so that you are the leader, you get information from your team, you make decisions, and you disseminate them. All right, so we're not doing that stuff ourselves. So as far as the financial side of it, there's just really not much to it. If you're using property management and they're recording everything, and you're using a CPA and they take that information, prepare your tax return and or your bookkeeping. So not too complicated. In the meantime, guys, thank you for being here. If you're not on our Facebook group yet, and I know many of you are, but if you're not, come on over and find us, Passive Income, Multifamily Investing. We do tons of free education just like this in our group, and our mission is just really to help people take it to the next level, whether you're trying to figure it out and piece it together on your own, or whether you're just, you want someone to hold your hand. Either way, we're here to help and support you, and we honor your journey. And thank you guys for being here. Have an awesome evening, and we'll see you soon.